why. It's like they're always asking you questions. You're like, I don't know why, just because. But like they would typically say, Jesus, what were you talking about? But in this situation, Mark tells us they were quiet. And they were not just quiet, they were afraid to ask. Now, Mark's also about to show us the primary reason they were afraid to ask. You see, they came to Capernaum. When he was in the house, he asked them, what were you arguing about on the road? But they kept quiet. Why? Because on the way they had argued about who was the greatest. Who was the greatest? Now, don't you just love the disciples? I mean, seriously, think about what Mark is telling us. Jesus has just told them, hey, the Son of Man, hey, newsflash, me, I'm about to be handed over to people. They're going to kill me, and then I'm going to die, and then 3 days later I'm going to raise from the grave. And this is what I would say. Okay, help me understand that, Jesus. Who's going to hand you over? When is this going to happen? What day? Why? I would ask all these questions. But instead of doing that, what do? Hey, I'm the best. No, I'm the best. Hey, you know who's the best? No, I'm the best. It's like, this is like, are you kidding me? Are we at County Line Elementary School on the playground with a bunch of 8-year-olds? This is this is something you would expect on your kid's Little League baseball team. I'm the fastest. No, I'm the fastest. No, you don't fastest. You just think you're the fastest because your dad's a coach. Could you imagine, these are the conversations of 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, not grown men that are following Jesus. This is embarrassing. And suddenly when you understand this, you begin to understand why they're quiet, but then you also go, okay, well, what is Jesus going to say to them? Well, in verse 35, Mark answers that. Sitting down, Jesus called the 12 and said, anyone who wants to be first must be the very last, and the servant to all. Now, there are two things that are awesome about this. One is that Jesus is once again establishing his supremacy and his authority. You're like, what are you talking about? When Jesus asked them a question, did they answer him? No. But Jesus just made a statement that says, I know what you were arguing about. Because he's God. He's fully man, but he's fully God. He fully understood what they were arguing about and how trivial they were. And what he's saying is, newsflash, you want to be great? You want to be first? Then you need to change your mindset and your understanding of what it means to be great. And that would be the second thing. Jesus redefines greatness. Jesus is redefining greatness. He's saying, you want to be great? You're going to be last. You want to be great? You're going to become a servant to all. Now, when you consider the culture and the context, that's huge, because what are they living in that day? What are the religious leaders of that day? The religious leaders are what? They're elevated. They're like, everyone thinks they're awesome. They're put up on a pedestal. Even if you didn't like the religious leaders, here's what no one would deny. They had positions of power. They had authority. So I think it's fair to say, when you understand that, when you understand all the excitement, all the attention that these disciples now have experienced from following Jesus, what have they got to witness? They've witnessed someone ripping off a roof and lowering a guy paralyzed down in front of Jesus. And Jesus doesn't just heal him. He says, I forgive your sin. They've watched Jesus spit into the eyes of someone and they get sight. He's watched him touch the tip of someone's tongue and they begin to speak. He's said to Lazarus, Lazarus, come out. And he raised a dead man from the grave. They've watched Jesus speak and demons flee. Not only that, when you think about it, they've been sent out themselves. And as a result of seeing all this and having all the crowd, and as they go anywhere now, there's the whispers. Look, it's Thomas, it's James, it's Peter, it's John, it's Mark. Suddenly, what creeps in? Pride, arrogance. And we know this because they begin to argue about who is the greatest. Who's the best? Who's Jesus' favorite? Probably. And because Jesus is God, he's aware of what they're arguing about. He's aware of why they're choosing to remain silent, but he cuts through the silence and he addresses this, using this as a teaching moment, saying, hey, anyone wants to be first, they got to be very last. Not just last, be the very last. Don't you find that interesting? Not just be last, be the very last. And a servant to who? All. Not just the people you want to serve, like people that you think are beneath you. People that are not deserving of your time. People that are like really hard to want to be around. And what I want you to see is in that moment, what Jesus is showing his disciples is what is required if you want to be great. In other words, Jesus is saying, if you want to be first, if you want to be great amongst your peers, you got to be a servant. I said this in the last service. You know, I was thinking about my buddy Mark Muncaster. I remember when we moved back here, we started going to Fitness Lab, and Mark and Toby were newer, because I was like OG at Post Road Fitness Lab, and then when they moved over to the new space, I was there, and we were just getting back into things, and so I didn't know Mark because I'd been gone for 10 and a half months doing a residency, but I remember there was we had this workout, but then they had burgers or something. It was one of the holiday weekends, and this guy pulls up in his truck, and he pulls out a tent, and he sets it up, and he just starts going to work, and he's just cooking for everyone. And I'm like, who is this? Like, obviously, he loves to do this thing, but then I started watching him, and what I watched is this wasn't something he just did on Saturday because they asked him. This is who he was. He was always serving people, looking for ways to encourage people. He's different. And watch that when he had Toby's 50th birthday party. You would have thought they were getting married. I mean, just went all out for his wife just to say, I love you, to serve her. And what I realized is this is someone I want very early. This is someone I want to be my friend. Why? Because he's someone that adds value to people's lives. He's someone that thinks about other people before he thinks of himself. And here's what I want you to understand is the disciples, not only was what Jesus telling them not expected, it is not something they were thrilled about. Think about it. Put yourself in their shoes. You've left your career. You've left your family behind to follow this man. And all of a sudden now you've seen the dead come to life. You've seen demons flee. You've seen people who couldn't walk. You've seen people who could not see. People who could not hear or speak, now hear and speak. And not only that, you have literally reached a point where now Jesus says, all right, I'm sending you out. And you have done that. Like, you literally have placed your hands on someone who was paralyzed and now they can walk. You literally touched someone's ears and now they hear. You literally have been able to speak life and cast out demons in the name of Jesus. And now what Jesus is telling you is and you've reached the point where you can't go anywhere without people recognizing you. You can't go anywhere now without you drawing a crowd. And what Jesus is saying is, in their minds, they're thinking, life's about to be really awesome. We're about to be the new religious leaders. And Jesus goes, nope. I hope you brought your towel because you're about to be some feet washers. You want to be great in the kingdom of God? You become a servant. You want to become great in the kingdom of God? You serve those that you think are beneath you. That's what I'm telling you. And I'm just going to tell you, the disciples were not thrilled about this. Because they just got through arguing about who's the greatest. Who's going to have the best seat probably at the table? Who's going to be the one that is going to be Jesus' favorite? And why would they have thought this? Because that's what the religious leaders' lives look like. Everyone held them in high esteem, even if they didn't like them. They sure as heck weren't going to bow up to them. They were the ones that everyone thought had They were in with God, like they had the connection. They were the one that knew what was best. But Jesus is like, nope, not with you. You want to be great? You're going to serve. Who are we going to serve? Everyone. What position am I going to be in? Dead last. And as hard as of a truth as this is, and I'm just going to tell you, I laugh. Before we're getting water, I'm getting water from a cup before, and there's a line. I literally cut the line, and I ain't got time to wait here. I got to get up here and speak. And I looked at David Sadler. I was like, yeah, I'm literally just violating everything I'm about to say in my sermon. And there's just a real life example of going, this is who we are. I don't have time to wait here. Especially if you're not a rule follower like me. I'll never forget one time. We're waiting for a ball game to go to play HEB soccer fields, and there's this line. And this is the difference between me and Ebby. Ebby is a rule follower. I am not. You put me on a 50,000-acre ranch, I will find the fence in 10 minutes. And I'll climb up it and say, what's over here? I have 50,000 acres to play on, but I want to know what's on the other side. And I remember there was no one coming out. Hence, this is why we can't get into it. And I just told Ebby, I said, have you ever just thought I could just cut around this and go in the exit and then speed really fast and then shoot into one of those empty parking spaces? She's like, never. And I was like, I know, that's so weird, but that's what I want to do right now. She's like, please don't. Remember what you do for a living. Ski mask. That's Pastor Brent again. But that's me. And as I read this, I just sense the word of God telling me, Brent, if you want to be great, you got to humble yourself. You got to slow down. You got to be a servant. And what I want you to understand is what Jesus is saying here. Man, it wasn't expected. They weren't excited. And then he continues to, as hard as this truth was for them, he continues to lay it on. Verse 36, he took a little child whom he placed among them. Taking the child in his arms, he said to them, whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me does not welcome me, but the one who sent me. Now what Jesus is saying here, now might sound odd to you, but it is extremely profound. You see, this is why, once again, I tell you, context is everything. Understanding the context, understanding the culture is everything. And why? Because when you understand it, you suddenly realize Jesus goes, no, the bar's here now. You think the bar's here? No, the bar's here. And what he was saying is what you have seen modeled by the religious elite, that is not going to cut it for me. What do you mean by that? Okay, well, here's what you need to know. Rabbis would not teach a child under the age of 12. They were a waste of time. They're like, I'm not going to give my time. Why? Because you're 11-year-olds. You're 10 years old. You have not done or accomplished anything in life. You have nothing to add to my life. How self-serving is that? Have you ever met someone like that? That a lot of people think are a servant, but you go, no, I see through it. Every time you serve, it's to make yourself look good or because you have an angle or there's strings attached to that. Or maybe someone's just a total narcissist and they don't want to serve anyone. I'm like, hey, if you're like that, you're going to hate this church because we set up and tear down every week. You're going to literally, you're like, I can't hide from all the service. But the truth is in that day and age, in fact, the religious leaders, man, they believe this about kids. They thought that kids were not deserving of their time because, one, they had no power, they had no honor, they were weak, they were dependent, and thus they should be ignored. They should be silenced. They should be deemed as obsolete and useless. Now, contrast that to what Jesus is saying here. Jesus is telling us that not only are children worth your time, he's saying that when you welcome a child, not only are you welcoming me, you are welcoming the one who sent me, which is who? The Father. Like, think about that. Like when you see someone and you go, they're beneath me, they're not worth my time, whether it's a child or not, he's like, you are forgetting that that person bears the image of God. That person needs to be shown the love of Christ. And when you welcome that person, when you love that person, when you don't treat them like a project to be fixed, but a person to be loved, Jesus goes, not only do you welcome me, you welcome the Father who sent me. And on the flip side is when you reject someone, when you say that person's beneath me, I don't have time. Not only do you reject Christ, but you also reject the Father who sent him. Thus, what Jesus is saying here is if you want to be great, you have got to change your mindset and become a servant. And when I think about like what Jesus is saying here, he's like, man, being great, like if you want to have the posture of a servant, if you want to be great, you got to take it, you have to take the posture of one of the things I thought about almost doing. We do it almost every year. I didn't do it this year, but every year around this time, I have like little hand towels, like you dry your car off with in everybody's seat. And I go, man, culturally, what we want you to be is we're going to be feet washers. We're going to be people that serve. Like, that's who we want to be. That's in our DNA. You're no more like Jesus than when you serve the needs of those around you. And what I love about what Jesus is saying is like, man, I'm just going to tell you right now, and I'm going to tell you as your pastor, and I can say this because this is a struggle for me. And I'm sure it's a struggle for a lot of you. But the greatest enemy to you being great, the greatest obstacle for you becoming great, and that when I say great, I'm not talking about being the number one on the depth chart or the top of the organization. Because a lot of us have worked in organizations where the person at the top, they might have been the one signing the checks, but they weren't very great. But if you want to be great, I'm just telling you the number one enemy is what? It's pride. Because pride will always elevate self. Pride will always say me. Pride will always say, I don't have time. Pride will always say, that's beneath me. I mean, just think about what we've seen pride do thus far in the text. The first thing we've seen is what? Pride destroys unity. You want to destroy a church? I'll always think about Russ Barksdale. When he was coaching me in our first 4 or 5 years, he would always say to me, Brent, the thing that will destroy a church the fastest is disunity, gossip, slander, tearing each other down, people talking about gossiping, people arguing over power. He goes, you want something to destroy your church? Let people start arguing about things. Why is that person getting to do this? I want to get this. Why am I not leading this? Why am I not getting to be on stage? Why am I not getting to do this? You want something to destroy the church, to hurt the unity of a church? You let pride creep in. I mean, look at the disciples. What are they doing? They're arguing about who's going to be the greatest. Are you kidding me? You're in the presence of the greatest. Second thing we see is what? Pride forfeits honor. Prideful person never shows honor. Why? Because they're only focused on themselves. I'll never forget when I moved to Mississippi. I'll never forget I was working with Chuck Angel, who was my mentor. He's a pastor at Turning Point, and he had me read this book called Honor's Reward. And the reason he had me read that is he knew I was coming back into a city that I had served previously for 10 years. And he says, you're going to learn the honor principle. You're going to learn when you move back to honor the church that you went to before. You're not going to recruit. You're not going to ask people for money. You're not going to do any of that. Like, you're going to show them honor. Those are not your people. Those are not your resources. This is going to be the God thing for you. You have influence. You know the city. Like, you have connections. But you are going to have to show honor. And if you don't, it will be your downfall. And I'm just going to tell you, it was the biggest thing in our journey, or I feel like God blessed. You see, when people choose to not honor, and this can be pastors, here's what they do. They want to be like, man, you battle for power. And what do? People that always are seeking to promote themselves, well, how often happens? Rather than getting honor, what do they get? Humiliation. It's exactly what happened to them. What were y'all arguing about? And they're just twiddling their thumbs like, oh, gosh, I don't know, Change the subject. They were embarrassed because they knew how stupid it was that they were arguing about that. And they knew Jesus was not going to be a fan of that kind of mindset. You see, what Jesus wants us to know is honor is reserved for the humble. Honor is reserved for the humble. You want to be someone that people want around your life? Be humble. I laugh. I literally got to sit in the ordination. I was over at Oakwood where I used to work, and I got to be on Trevor's ordination council, which was awesome. And I said, hey, man, I just want to share something with you. And I said, I'm going to laugh. I said, people are in this room that knew me when I worked here are probably going to laugh when I say this because I didn't do this. I said, be the last person to talk in the room. I said, from this point on, I said, you're here because you're a leader. Everyone in this room recognizes you're a leader and you're called by God. And I told him, I said, and I love Trevor. I got to see him come to know the Lord and got to baptize him. So it was an honor for me to be there. And I'm there with all these people that I love and listen to all these other pastors from our community speak over him. And I just said, look, there'll never be a moment from this point on if you don't disqualify yourself that you're not in a room where you're not either at the head of the table or you have not been invited in because you're a leader. And I said, if you always talk first, here's what you're going to do. You're going to do two things. One is you're not going to give your people a voice. And two is you're going to shut down better ideas than you have. Because you're a leader, if you can discipline yourself not to talk first, sometimes when that better idea comes up, you're going to go, we're going to do that. Because you're a leader, you're going to recognize it's a better idea than yours. And I looked at him and I looked at Ray and I said, and I started crying. I said, I can just tell you this. I lack the maturity at times to keep my mouth shut in meetings. And what resulted was I came across as someone who says, you don't know what you're doing, and I know better. And let me just tell you, he knew a lot more than I do. And I told him, I'm sorry. I was just hungry and excited and young and wanted to help. But in my immaturity, I lacked the wisdom to realize that sometimes the best thing you can do is just be quiet. And then when someone asks you, then you can share. No one likes unsolicited advice. The third thing pride does is pride rejects deity. You're like, what in the world are you talking about? Pride rejects God. Why? Well, MacArthur says it this way. The profound reality is that Christians, when they treat other fellow Christians harshly, what they're ultimately doing is they're doing that to Christ. To reject others, to reject other believers, to mistreat them, is to misrepresent and mistreat God. And what's so sad is that we have so many people in the church in this country that literally do nothing but gossip and speak ill of others and mistreat others. And what they fail to see is that when you do that, like, you're not only hurting the person, but you're hurting the heart of God. What I want you to see is, like, as hard as all this is, Mark's not even done telling us what Jesus is showing us about pride. He continues and says, verse 38, "Teacher," said John, "we saw someone driving out demons in your name, and we told him to stop because he was not one of us." "Do not stop him," Jesus said, "for no one who does a miracle in my name can in the next moment say anything bad about me. For whoever is not against me or against us is for us. Truly, I tell you, anyone who gives a cup of water in my name because of you belong to the Messiah will certainly not lose the reward." Okay, so let me ask you, does any of you think, this may be my brain only because it's ADHD, squirrel, rabbit, okay? Anybody ever, like, you read this, you're going, what in the world is going on? Like, how do we just change subjects? There was no, "Jesus, we're sorry. God, yeah, we were arguing about who was greatest. Would you forgive us? God, I want to be better. Jesus, we want to be better. Jesus, like, how do we avoid this? How do you do this? How do you always do what's right?" There was none of that. What do we see? Like, and what we see in this is the fourth thing that pride does. Pride will not accept responsibility. If you know someone who's prideful, it's always someone else's fault. It's never their fault. They lack self-awareness and the ability to see that they can be wrong. Like, you've been around a true narcissist, they literally will lie to themselves so much that they actually believe the lies they're telling. Those people are dangerous to be around. And you should avoid them at all costs. But I'm just going to tell you, like, when you want to say you're wrong, or you want to say, like, "Hey, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I need forgiveness." You cannot say that without humility. And if you genuinely mean it. And what I want you to see is that rather than thanking Jesus for pointing out where their hearts had gone astray, rather than saying, "Jesus, thank you for showing us how immature we were, arguing who's the greatest," Mark tells us John literally just changes the subject. And in doing so, John shows us another thing. He shows us another prideful thing. I mean, just think about how ridiculous what they're saying. "Jesus, we saw this guy casting out a demon in your name. We told him to stop because he's not one of us." I mean, could you imagine if I came up here one Sunday and says, "Guys, we need to pray for Redemption Bible Church." You know, like last week, Blair and the elders, they gathered around someone who had cancer and prayed and asked God for healing, and they went in to get their MRI, and all the cancer was gone. I can't believe they would do that. What in the world's wrong with them? I think all y'all would leave, and you should leave. I mean, could you imagine if I was like, "Man, John at the Springs, man, there was a guy came in, he was in a wheelchair, and they prayed over him, and God just miraculously stood up and walked out, and they couldn't believe it. I can't believe they would do that. God can only work here." You would be like, "Okay, this is a cult. We're getting out of here." It'd be crazy. It'd be like me seeing, my friends I grew up with, youth group at First Presbyterian. They baptized like several thousand people at the beach. I'm like, "Man, I can't believe they would. God, what are you doing over there? You're supposed to only move here." It's ridiculous what they're saying to Jesus. I mean, it's the reason you laugh. Yet, like, who in the world would not want someone to be free of a demon and experience freedom? Newsflash. The disciples. And I'm just telling you, if you are not careful, pride will get into your heart and you will act just the same. These are the men that changed the world. And yet, in this moment, they're upset because someone's doing something that they want. Why? Because in their minds, they literally, that would bring us to the fifth thing. Pride creates what? Exclusivity. We are the only ones that can do this. I'm the only one that can lead this class. I'm the only one that can do this. I'm the only one that can make a decision in our family. I'm the only one in this friendship that has a voice. I'm the only one in the relationship that gets a say. This is dangerous. You see, because the disciples had let pride creep in, do you know who the disciples had become like? The religious leaders, the very people that are trying to kill Jesus. That said, I'm the only one that can sit up here and teach. I'm the only one that can do. That was one of the things when we first started this. My first year as we planted, I went like 9 weeks in a row, I think. It might have been 11. It was no less than 8 where I didn't teach. There's a reason I have Travis speak about 10 to 12 times a year. I think that it's dangerous to become the only voice that people hear from. What if I get sick? What if I die? What if I get hit by a car? I don't want this to fail. I don't want this to be built around me. I mean, there's no great leader that is dumb enough to think if I died tomorrow, it would affect our church. But it would grieve my soul if this failed because of that. I have to really believe that the leadership that I have in place around me would do just fine without me. And that God would just, you ever stuck your hand in a bucket of water and you pull it up, and just as fast as it filled up, God has the ability to fill in and take my place here. I'll never forget my mentor telling me that. I would never have done that. He says, this staff member was being, and I'm like, man, I couldn't work for you, Chuck. I love him. But he's like, he said, he was mad at the staff member, and he was just creating mess. He said, have you ever stuck your hand in a bucket, pulled it out, see how fast it fills in? He goes, if you don't start changing, that's what's going to happen with you, and we ain't going to miss a beat. I was like, you are so hardcore. I was like, I'm glad you love me. But God looks at us and says, no, not you. Don't be the one to always crave power. Be the one that's looking to serve. See, Jesus expects so much more from his disciples and us today, and that's why he says, for no one who does a miracle in my name can in the next moment tell you anything bad about me. What Jesus is saying here, he's like, for whoever is not against us, they're what? They're for us. Truly, I tell you, anyone who gives a cup of water in my name because you belong to the Messiah will certainly not lose their reward. What Jesus is saying is that wherever you see God at work, celebrate it. Wherever you see God at work, celebrate it. You see a church blowing up. I loved what J.D. Greear was saying. He was praying for revival for his city in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. And he was like, the Holy Spirit says, what if I send revival to your city? But just to the church down the road, are you going to be excited? And he said in that moment, I had to be honest. I was like, yeah, I'd be excited, but I'd also be sad. And God goes, I want you to get to the point where you would be excited no matter where I send it. And what I love about JD, and this is one of the reasons we said here we always want to be a church that plants other churches, is he'll tell you, he says, man, we might have 8,000 people worshiping in our different campuses. He goes, but we have way more people worshiping on churches that we've started and planted that have now multiplied and planted other churches. We have more people worshiping in the churches that we've planted and the churches they planted than the 8,000 people in our campuses. And he says the reason why is because multiplication always beats addition every time. And when you see God moving, you should celebrate. It's the vision of our church. God's plan for the church is not us to one day get a building and say we've arrived. But the purpose of the church is for wherever you are, and when you see God moving, you step in those burning bush moments and see those everyday places become a sacred space that people are connected to Christ. And what Jesus is telling you here, this is what's incredible. Not only should you celebrate it, he says when you fight against pride, here's the reward you get. You get humility. You become humble. And I'm just telling you, think about people that you love the most. They're humble. According to Jesus, you know what? Humility always gains reward. And that doesn't just gain reward. He says it's a reward that will not be taken from you. What does that mean? Not just in this life, but in the life to come. So as we end our time together, I want to ask you 2 questions that I think I've asked myself this week, and I want to continue asking myself. You can ask yourself in your life groups. If you maybe you go to lunch today, you can actually if you go to the blog section on our website every week after the sermon. If you go on the blog site, you click on that. There's questions that your life group can go through, but there's also questions that you can go through as a family or yourself. But here's 2 questions I want to give you in addition to those. The first is this: am I a person who sees and understands that greatness and servanthood are inseparable? Am I someone that understands that greatness and being a servant is inseparable? You want to make a difference in someone's life, you serve them. It's funny. My buddy Zach, who's here, we bought the property from. He's sitting with my wife, and now I'm embarrassed you over there. He showed me a text message he got. A guy had broke down on the side of the road several years ago, and then it was late at night and had no one to stop, and Zach stopped and helped him out. Well, he messaged Zach 2 years later, and it's like, hey, I know it's been a long time, but I just want you to know, that had a huge impact on my life. I was in a place where I just thought, man, no one cares. Everyone in this world is selfish. And when I'm sitting on the side of the road in the middle of the night and need someone to stop, you stopped, and you showed up, and you didn't ask for anything. You just helped me. And he goes, it made a massive difference in my life. I wrote a paper about it in college. He sent him the paper, but he goes, I just felt led. I was just thinking about that, and I wanted to encourage you. You want to be great? Serve someone. Show up for someone. All of us today would say the most influential person in our life is not someone that just taught us a bunch of knowledge. You would say they modeled who you actually want to be. And I would venture to say they're probably humble and loving and kind. And the second question you would ask, and this is going to be a hard one, with those around me, i.e. my family, my friends, my coworkers, my employees, band, y'all can come on up, my teammates, etc., would they describe me as someone who is humble and a servant, or someone who is prideful and feels like they desire and always want to be served? Is everything about you? Or are you someone that they would say is a towel holder? I always loved Steve Parton for when I was at Pine Lake. Every Sunday morning, same message, every Sunday morning. I hope you brought your towels today because we're going to wash some feet. And we weren't going to wash people's feet because that'd be weird. I know we did that a couple weeks ago, which I told them that's weird, but it was powerful. But what I'm saying is that, I want to show up. I always say this as one of my favorite things Ray would always tell me over at Oakwood. He's like, hey, he'd look at us and go, hey, remember. And you knew what he was going to say. He said it all the time. Walk slowly among the people. Was he telling us to walk slow? No, he was saying, slow down. Look people in the eyes. Pay attention to what's going on around you. If something feels off, stop. If you're 2 minutes late to your Bible study, but I have a holy encounter with someone in the hall, that's what God wanted. And so I just want to invite you this morning to ask yourselves, do you see greatness as achieving the top level of the pyramid or the chart, the depth chart? The CEO, is that okay, you're great. There's a reason a lot of people achieve the things they always wanted and realize that, man, I'm miserable. It's because in their mind, greatness was being at the top. But I'm just going to tell you, greatness is being, according to Jesus, a servant to all. And I'm just going to tell you, the way to find out if you're good at this is ask your kids, is to ask your spouse. And some of you are like, well, I don't want to ask them. And the reason you don't want to ask them is because you know what their answer is going to be. And if you know that already, well, let me just tell you, if you can't say amen, say ouch. Come on. You already know. I mean, Abby already got on me this week. She goes, man, you were doing so good with the dishes here recently. You have not been doing so good. I'm like, I received that. I said, well, it's not. I guess this is why the Lord has me teaching on being a servant this week. Come on. That's my boo. But I am so thankful for my life, for the men and women who served me when I was a stinking mess. Because when I walked into church for the first time, praying no one smelled cigarette smoke on me, had my shirt tucked in, khaki pants, everybody thought I was shy. First person I met was my wife. And she's like, hey, you new here? Yeah, what tells you? I look like a deer in headlights. But I think about the people over the years who just showed up and showed up and showed up in my life and loved me and looked for ways to serve me and point me to Jesus. And I'm just going to tell you guys, you want to be great? Don't see people as a project to be fixed, but people to be loved. And when you begin to do that, the Lord will show up in your life and do things that blow your mind. What this world needs is not another verse quoted to them. What they need is to see that verse lived out. They need to see that verse be incarnate, have flesh on it. And so, Jesus, that's what we ask. Would we be a bunch of towel holders? Would we be people that just look for opportunities to humble ourselves so that you may be lifted up, King Jesus? If you're here today, I'm just going to tell you, you will never, ever, ever, ever be able to serve those around you like God has called you to until you have allowed the Lord to serve you and the way you have him serve you is you surrender your heart, and he comes in and he will set you free. He did the most selfish act of service, and he died on the cross for you. He paid the debt you deserve. But he didn't just stay in the tomb. 3 days later, he conquered the grave, and he holds the keys to sin and death and shame. And what he's inviting you into this relationship that says, God, I want you, I receive you, Jesus. I want you to make me whole. Fill me with your spirit. Help me live for you all your days. If you've never done that, I'm just going to encourage you, when I finish praying, there's people at the back at the prayer tables, just get up and go back there and say, hey, today I want to give my life to Christ. Would you just pray with me? No one's going to think that's weird. Everybody would rejoice and clap for you. But for all of us in the room, I want us to ask ourselves, God, am I like you? Am I a servant? And if the answer is no, then would your prayer be, Lord, help me become great. Help me redefine how I see and pursue and view greatness. May I see greatness as being humble and a servant, not being at the top of the food chain.
You gave your life for mine, nailed to the cross, you crucified all my sin and shame. It was washed by your mercy. You are the treasure I find, reason for living, so let my life become an offering to the one who is worthy. And all praise to the Lord Most High, all praise to the one who saved my life, all praise to Jesus Christ, my King of heaven, my King forever. torn between, was torn apart. Now you hold the keys to the grave, 'cause you bring things to life, and you roll stones away. All praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, my King of heaven, my King forever. And all praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, my King of heaven, my King forever. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now before you. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now before you. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now before you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life down before you. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. And all praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. All praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. And I lift my hands and lay my whole life down, my whole life now before you. I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. And all praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. All praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever.
Amen. Come on. You guys be seated. Hey, a couple quick things to let you know that's coming up. Hey, if you have a middle school or high school this Saturday night, they're meeting up here at DBAT. They're going to go to the San Antonio Mission baseball game, and so they're going to meet here at what time? 5 o'clock this Saturday here at DBAT. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, man, send your kids out and go on a date. So it'll be a lot of fun. A couple of things also to let you know, if you want to have a baby that recently and you're like haven't done baby dedication, next Sunday we got baby dedication. We got spots still available. You can go on to the events page. You can click on there and you can register your kid for that. And then also coming up, May 11th, man, it's going to be such an awesome day. It's going to be Mother's Day. It's our 6-year celebration, which is going to be so much fun. River baptism. We'll do it all out for mothers that day. We're going to have barbecue. We're going to have, I think, a cotton candy machine. We're going to have snow cones. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then also, it is our first fruits offering. If you're new to Epic Life, we just closed on property the Monday before Easter, and the goal that we're trying to do is to raise $975,000. And if we can raise that, that would mean we would immediately go into building a worship space that would hold around 400-something people and would put us on property this time next year. And so, come on, everybody's excited about get out of set up and tear down. Come on. But that's not the only reason we want to do that. The main reason we want to do that is because we're going to create space for families and people that can come to church. I mean, there's all, you walk around, I walk around the property all the time. I'm over there and messing around and weed eating and mowing and doing, but it's so peaceful over there. But you just look, everywhere you look, there's rooftops. And yet it is so quiet and so awesome. But I'm just like, this is going to be a place. It's an everyday place that is going to become a sacred space where so many people and families are going to come to know the Lord. And so I'm so excited. But we are at around 308,000 that's already come in. And so every day at 1 o'clock, man, we're praying, God, with our time, my talent, and my treasure, what is it that, God, you would want me to be a part of doing this? And my prayer is that, you know what, if we hit our goal, that's great. If we don't, it's okay. Because the closer we get to that goal, it's not going to take forever. And then when we get there, man, we're just going to keep moving forward. And so I'm excited. We're already, got almost a third of the land, of what we're trying to raise paid off, and we haven't had our big offering. So, man, continue to pray about that. Continue to ask money to come in, and God stirring people's hearts. And, man, whether it's $25 or it's $25,000, it all adds up. Someone go, I can't do $25,000. Well, who can? But there are people. But you go, hey, I know what a door costs. I can give $150. And I go, man, I know that's going to buy a door. And so when you start looking like that, it goes, man, you can buy a door that opens up. You go, I can afford to buy a chair. When we first started this, we said, man, purchase a seat for a friend, $35. But $35 now won't buy you that chair because of all the craziness, and so that chair now is $50. But it's like, I get $50. I go, man, I create a space for someone. And so I just pray that you go, God, whatever, man, if it's the widow's mite, whatever I do, God, it's going to be used for your glory and for your kingdom. And so, man, I'm excited. Hey, hope you have a wonderful day. If you can do me a huge favor, stack chairs in groups of 10 to 12 off the rugs. And if you're a guest, we'd love to connect with you at Connected Point. And a way to say thank you, we'd love to give you a T-shirt. May the Lord bless you. Amen.